Good evening and welcome to the 47th edition of our Backstage. Today, more than an anniversary, it's a day that wants to celebrate Autodelta. It's 60th anniversary, yes, but most of all, to celebrate what is still Autodelta, what it represents for the Alfa Romeo brand, and tell some of the stories around its birth and development. But Autodelta, just like any reality, is made up of many elements that we tried to sum up in a short video, which is like a tribute to this incredible reality.
La nascita dell'Autodelta nel 1963, anno in cui entra in funzione il nuovo stabilimento di Arese, è quasi una scelta inevitabile. Si tratta di...
È un bilancio positivissimo, noi si è fatta appena 10 corse, quindi nessuno in 10 corse, penso nessun team abbia raggiunto un livello simile.
Alla prima posizione. Sulle strade del Mugello le vetture esprimono in pieno tutte le doti di potenza e di tenuta e confermano di essere i più forti prototipi da 2 litri oggi esistenti. Il piccolo bolide milanese ha già ottenuto quest'anno significativi successi alla 24 ore di Daytona, alla Targa Florio e alla 1000 km del Nürburgring.
Questo inizio con Alfa Romeo è stato dei più piacevoli e i progressi che si stanno facendo sono veramente fantastici e devo dire c'è un'atmosfera in seno all'equipe dell'Alfa Romeo che non ho mai visto in nessuna squadra, è veramente una cosa fantastica.
Una squadra molto affiatata, capace di superare in scioltezza qualsiasi avversità. Il merito di tutto ciò è soprattutto dell'ingegner Chiti, un uomo dal carattere non facile che riesce però a farsi ben volere dai suoi dipendenti.
Ritorno nei Gran Premi, data 1976. L'Alfa Romeo, attraverso l'Autodelta, fornisce i propulsori alla prova. 2 anni di crescita e nel 1978 le vittorie.
E dal 1980 finalmente in proprio, con una vettura che torna a far sognare chi non è più giovanissimo e a far palpitare i ventenni quando Bruno Giacomelli a Watkins Glen conquista la prima pole position del nuovo corso Alfa Romeo.
Un gruppo di piloti italiani è l'artefice di questa lunga stagione felice. Ignazio Giunti, Andrea De Adamich, Nanni Cappo, Nino Vaccarella, Teodoro Zecco, Mario Casoni, Spartaco.
storia che dura da oltre 60 anni e questo Ice Trophy, come gare in famiglia, ne è forse la pagina più attuale e divertente. Certo esprime in modo spettacolare e inconsueto quello spirito di competizione dell'Alfa Romeo che l'ha resa leggendaria in tutto il mondo. L'Alfa Romeo è arrivata là dove altre case hanno dovuto attendere molto più tempo.
Some of you maybe recognize himself in the video, and you probably recognize many of the protagonists, but Autodelta deserve the tribute, and this tribute doesn't only come from the museum, and not only from you, from the people who participated, but it's the entire Alfa Romeo that wants to give the right recognition to what was a fundamental element of the history of the brand. I will now leave the floor to the CEO of Alfa Romeo, who could not be present with us today, but wanted anyway to send us a few words. Dear friends, good morning. Today we are celebrating the 60 years of Autodelta. So to me, apart from this special moment, what does Autodelta mean? Autodelta is this. Autodelta is Zeta, is GTA. Autodelta is 33 Stradale. Autodelta is Formula 1. Autodelta is sport prototype also. So the history of Alfa Romeo. The history of a team, of a family, of technology. And I would say that this spirit is what makes Alfa Romeo different. It is an important moment and we want to celebrate it with you, but not only with you. 2023 will be the year of a new step forward for Alfa Romeo. We will talk about this in a few weeks. We will take a stance on the market, but also on the history and motorsport of Alfa Romeo. We will make big decisions. I'll see you in a few weeks, and for the moment, I wish you a great celebration. I regret I cannot be with you, but I will see you soon, and see you in Monza anyway. Bye. And now, I want to invite Alessandro Nardizzi on stage. He's responsible for Alfa Romeo communication at global level, who wants to introduce this beautiful day. Thank you Lorenzo. And thank you everyone for being here. You are numerous and that is a pleasure for us. I would like to thank Raffaella and Lorenzo. They are extraordinary. They organized this day as they organized all the other days. Just a few words to convey you what to us as a company, as Alfa Romeo, means this day. So over the last 2 years, as you know, the company went through important, major transformations. So I was in the company before, and I can guarantee you that the importance that this brand now has in the Stellantis universe, it is incredibly strong. It has never been so strong. Mr. Imparato was one of the first one who was appointed after the formation of Stellantis, and I still remember the first days he gave us an appointment here at the museum. It was his first activity in Italy. So he wanted to meet all of us here, and he said, I want to start again from two things. One is history, the second one is passion. And in order to do that, he put out a group of 49 people. 49, I'm part of this team. Everyone is a great passionate person, and more than a job, they had a life choice. So he gave us this mission. History, so we start again from the museum, but not only. Passion, so getting in contact with our clubs. We started to do that, and I guarantee you we will do that more and more. This is an important goal we have. So let's start from the history to outline the future of the brand. And to us, designing the future is an obsession. We work on this every day. So passion, but we also try to find a balance in the business, which is fundamental. So we guarantee, and you guarantee, a future to a brand by making profits and having a product plan. And over the last 2 years, this has been made. Alfa Romeo has positive accounts. It contributes positively to the budget of the company, and this allowed us to have a product plan, which we have. It's approved and financed. So every year we will have a product launch. But I don't want to talk too much today because we are here to talk about passion, history. Autodelta has an incredible history made up of excellence in sports and motor. So our design department, as you know, drew a celebratory logo that, and today in Bahrain it will also be represented at the Formula One race. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for being so numerous. Thank you on behalf of Alfa Romeo, of the entire Alfa Romeo team, and congratulations, Alfa Romeo. Thank you, Alessandro. Today, talking about Autodelta would mean spending more than 1 hour. So I would immediately ask to Mr. Bruno Giacomelli to come on stage and say a few words, because he's probably the expert. Welcome, Bruno. So, you developed a race with the greatest series, but let's talk about Autodelta, not only a car. How was your first day in Autodelta? Well, first of all, welcome everybody. As I often repeat, it was a long experience. We could spend an entire day talking about this. I see a nice picture there, very beautiful. That is always there. We didn't put it up on purpose, but it's 23, and this is when year 23. So I have passion for figures, but I remember it was the first time I went to Balocco. So I saw for the first time the 177 Formula One, the one that we raced with at the Belgium Grand Prix, and I remember it was in the Cascina Luigina inside Balocco, in the Balocco racetrack. At first it was a stable, which of course was restored. There was this Nino Farina, a picture in black and white, and there was the red car. I remember it as if it were yesterday. It was a great emotion. I already debuted in Formula One, and that was my first contact with the car and Autodelta. And then everything came. We debuted in Belgium with a car, the 177 that you have here at the museum. Yes, I confirm. It's a unique model. And then the 179, towards the end of the year, arrived. And then we did 3 seasons, 80, 81, 82. But how was to work with those men who are seated first row? Well, I always got along very well with the people I work with. Everyone did his part or her part. I have a great memory. At least a couple of times a year we meet. Of course, the group is less numerous because time goes by, but every time it's a party, it's a celebration. We talk about those episodes we lived in those years, and it's always nice. Well, thank you for giving us this witness and for being here. But talk about Autodelta to Lorenzo, it's not easy. I just remember one fantastic thing I want to say. When we did the pole position at Watkins Glen, October the 4th, 1980, we had a dinner at night, so at the motel where we were sleeping with Mr. Chiti, and I guarantee you that he was like in paradise. I can imagine. Well, I also was in paradise, but he was particularly on 7th heaven because he had an exceptional car. And then the next year, we didn't have the occasion to use it because the regulations changed completely, but that night was fantastic. There will be other occasions to invite you, thank you, but before leaving, since you cannot stay till the end, I want to give you, so you're the first to receive a small gift of today, of this celebratory anniversary. Thank you Lorenzo, thanks everyone. And now we make a step. We take a step backwards and we go to the origin of Autodelta. We were lucky enough today because this conference it celebrated one of the 3 days when the Autodelta was born, because according to the document you read, it can be the 4th, the 5th, or the 6th. Anyway, we don't talk about the birth of Autodelta per se, with the famous meeting, etc. These things have already been read on the books, but we want to say and to do that by telling you what Autodelta was for Alfa Romeo, what it represented for it, and how Alfa Romeo decided to invest in this program. So we have to think that after Alfa Romeo retired from Formula One at the end of the season 1951, different paths are considered. They talked about many things, getting back to Formula One, starting from 1954, and then with the Tipo 160, they didn't go in the end, but parallel, they started to work on many projects, and in the 50s, they started to collaborate with Correro, with Abarth, to develop a small tubular chassis car. So the design of this car goes on for years, it takes on different shapes, it takes different roads, some are not feasible, so they went back and restarting from scratch, but having a tubular chassis, but being wanted a car similar to Giulietta, for example, a Giulia, then was developed, and Alfa Romeo has to start how to use this car, not only how to build it. And as it happened in other cases in the past, for Alfa Romeo and also for other builders and automobile constructors, they started to consider collaboration with an external company so that these could build the cars, bring them to the races, maintain the relationships with the customers, but being distant from the headquarters of Alfa Romeo. The distance from 2 points of view. The distance, so that it would not distract. Well, distraction was not the term used for the birth of Autodelta, but it was the sentence used for the contract with Ferrari a few years ago, because the contact points of the two realities, so to outsource the sports department, were there. So in this case, they identified in the Autodelta company, in Udine, Carlo Chiti and Chizzola, the ideal reality, because it was Chiti who was the person responsible for the success and the seriousness of the initiative. So, as a first step, they drafted an agreement for the construction of the 105-11, the TZ we see here today. It is a contract written on several pages. I show you here an excerpt, and it's a classical contract that leaves many doors open, because yes, it is defined how the car should be built, who has to pay the pieces, who has to deliver the pieces, how it should be sold, how the prices and profits should be divided. But what is clear from the beginning is that this would not be the only contract, the first contract, but it's the first of a long series of agreements that aim at making Autodelta a real official racing department. And in 1964, so shortly after, this willingness starts to be better defined, so to make Autodelta a more agile, swift department, separate from the bureaucracy of a big company, always with the Chiti present, who could guarantee both the quality of the work and the relationship with Alfa Romeo and other suppliers. So, from this agreement, a second agreement is drafted with a date, in this case indicated as March the 6th. And in this agreement, this agreement starts to outline the willingness to enlarge the perimeter of action of Autodelta. What does this mean? Well, not only to build TZ, but also help it race on the racetrack and manage also the relationship with the customers and being a racing team. And there's another decisive step that starts to be outlined. The fact that Autodelta at a certain point could no longer be like a hidden point for Alfa Romeo, but once shown that Autodelta can win, Alfa Romeo can appear and not be hidden anymore. So making of Autodelta an internal department. But this could be done in several ways. There could have been simply the purchase of the company, or the rebirth of a new company which was born from the ashes of Autodelta, or incorporate Autodelta, and it's a third possibility, and start to take what was in the beginning only an office in Settimo Milanese, as in 1963 around Milan, in the outskirts of Milan, and making it the headquarters of this company controlled by Alfa Romeo, that in 1978 appears in this document with its goal. So to take care of cars, not only of races, but also of production, because let's not forget that Autodelta will have many roles in Alfa Romeo, and not only limited to the world of races. So in this case, instead, I would like to call on stage a witness from those times, whose surname is very important, and of course he is very knowledgeable. Please, Dario Luraghi, join me on stage and tell us something. I arrive here. Well, welcome. Welcome to these event among friends. So Autodelta was born with ambitions, and it was developed thanks to the will of Giuseppe Luraghi and the company that he managed with a long-term view. What do you recall of that era? Yes, it is exactly something of Giuseppe Luraghi. Why? Because in 1971, my father, as a film mechanical general director, took the decision, heartfelt decision, to stop the winning cycle of races for Alfa Romeo. So Alfa Romeo left the competition as a world champion with the 159, but it was more important for this company to have solid accounts. And races were extremely expensive. But what was worse is that it was very cumbersome. For example, Sat, Busto, just to make a few names, so the best designers had worked on the races more than on the rest. So these geniuses were free to design something that, under the profile of production, could then go to the commercial department, guaranteeing profits for the company. And that was the case. The 1009 and Giulietta were born, and then all the rest that we all know so well. But in a sportsman like my father, who was a former boxer, something made him restless. So as soon as he had the possibility, first he had some 1,900 race at the Carrera Panamericana with Finmeccanica written on it. And then little by little he thought of getting back to competition with his glorious Milanese brand, because it was really a Milanese brand. And that's how this reintroduction of Alfa Romeo took place, of course, with the Turismo cars, because this is what Alfa Romeo needed to sell. So the sports car from Alfa Romeo, the family car who won races. So this title went from the 1900 to Giulietta and so on. And then Alfa Romeo produced, they had the necessity, the need to go back to races, but could not do that directly, because this again would have stolen time to people who had to deal with other designs. So Autodelta was born. Chiti was the right man to steer this department. And with the presence of Chizzola, whose brother was working in Alfa Romeo, this automobile hub was created in Settimo Milanese, the Autodelta. Now, if you went to Settimo Milanese and to Autodelta, meant risking your shoes, and not only, because you had to walk through dozens of dogs that Carlo Chiti saved from the street, so stray dogs that he took care of. Once he almost had an accident because he saw a dog, a stray dog. So he immediately stopped the car and he took this dog with him. So sometimes my father called me, even though I work for another automobile constructor, and he told me some important things that would be developed or should be developed in Alfa Romeo. There were nice things and things less pleasant, like Teodoro Zeccoli's accident in Monza, when in testing the prototype of a 33 at 2000, it was the only existing car that Chiti wanted to see on the test race. But Balocco test race didn't exist, so they went to Monza. I was there, my wife was there, Chiti was there, and Teodoro Zeccoli was there driving this prototype. It was a short lap, a short circuit, because there was snow. It was January, February, so snow had been cleared, but there were like walls to the sides of the racetrack. So Teodoro, for lack of braking power, instead of having a curve, goes straight and bumps into the ice. The car jumps in the air. Teodoro goes outside and finishes on the tarmac. So we ran, there was no one. The ambulance was not ready, so we ran, and halfway we still had 150 to 200 meters from the stands to there. We hear something behind us. Carlo Chiti, who was a big man, surpasses us, and I say, oh, I would have never said he was so fast, he could run so fast. I would have never said that he knew so many bad words in Tuscan vernacular language. So he goes next to Teodoro, and he goes towards the car was burning, swearing and saying, oh fuck, my car. So the car was lost. And so we also lost the first prototype of the 33. Teodoro then was okay, was saved. He still have the signs of this accident. But he became a Alfa Romeo dealer in Imola, where he will probably finish his career, I guess. Correct. I appreciated your elegance, because you didn't mention the brand. Well, thank you for these anecdotes. This is always the heart of this storytelling. Well, Chiti didn't eat. He just devoured everything. I didn't see, he didn't even chew, but he was happy. So this is how I remember Chiti, an exceptional man. Thank you again. So we heard from Mr. Dario Luraghi an introduction of Chiti, who was the creator of Autodelta, the director of Autodelta. He had many roles, and anyone who talks about Autodelta, be it journalists who often told this history of the dinners, because probably it's hit many people, struck many people, but Carlo Chiti anyway is a protagonist, is a main character, so we could not but talk about him.
È un bilancio positivissimo, poi si è fatta appena 10 corse, quindi nessuno in 10 corse, penso nessun team abbia raggiunto un livello simile.
Well, Carlo Chiti for Autodelta was everything. Later on, I will have the pleasure to gather some witnesses from the workers of Autodelta, who with him had daily relationships and sometimes fights, but no one could talk about Chiti from two sides, so we asked his son Arturo to tell us something about his father. He had previous meetings, he could not be here with us today, but he wanted to send us a video. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for accepting, well, not my physical presence, but this virtual presence. Unfortunately, for a misunderstanding in communications, I could not be present with you today, but I would like to underline that with my heart I'm there. Many of you know me since I was a child, and to me, many of you are still points of reference for what was a special childhood, who allowed me to see the development, the growth and the passion that you all put in working for Autodelta, and celebration when there were times to celebrate, but it was not always the case. So I said, today I'm with you, and not only because I'm reliving those years when I was a witness, because I never did anything, but I share your enthusiasm, but I also see again the great love, apart from respect, that we all have or had for my father. Of course, to me, my father was not only Carlo Chiti, but was also my father. And this has a different value, of course, but I think that he left me, apart from all the culture and his willingness to do things, also the incredible memory of the affection that he had towards you and you had and still have for him, as well as those who are no longer here with us. I know that today you will spend a nice day together. There was a celebration around the Autodelta plant. A few days ago I was talking with Arnaldo Tonti. I don't know whether I would have gone back to see it painted in a different color, but okay, it's understandable. I believe that Autodelta represented, apart from what it represented for the automobile world, a second home to many of us. So I remember the Sundays spent in Autodelta, not only watching the work, but especially to take care of the dogs. And this is something that when I was a kid I did often, but I was happy to do that. So I can't but apologize again for not being able to come there. Wish to meet you very soon in person, and also wish all of you an incredible day and an incredible day of celebrations. As always, our backstage will be recorded, and I'm sure that the warmth of this audience and of the team that Arturo Chiti talks about, because he speaks to you, and is great. This is a symbol of bonds that continue over the years. But let's continue with the history of Autodelta. It was one with TZ, with a building contract, and then little by little rose, and the next step is to make a constructor out of Autodelta, not with an exclusive contract in the beginning, but with a role which is considered relevant in the GTA construction. GTA meant a lot to Autodelta. For some, Autodelta is GTA. First of all, and for Alfa Romeo, it was a great victory with an everyday car, the willingness to go and win with something, having the aspect, the character, the shapes of a car that could be driven on the roads in the cities, that could be both. So there was a direct link between the races world and Alfa Romeo, as only in the 30s could exist, and as it's difficult to think for today's times where there are a lot of differences between the two worlds. So Autodelta arrived when Alfa Romeo decided that that was the line to follow, because the role of Autodelta should be to make the GTA real. So GTA had a success that I should not tell you. We know the figures. We know incredible number of victories, the names of the pilots, and the next step is to raise the bar again and get to the sports cars. We have tens of thousands of images in our archives, and it would be difficult to choose, but talking about the 33, I chose only two. One is a picture of the 33 where they were born, where they were taken care of. Maybe you recognize some of the people who are working on them. or you recognize yourself, and in the corner you also see the 33 Stradale. But that's another story we'll talk about in a while. The another picture I chose is the picture of the victory in Austria, which brought the world title of 1975. It's a very common picture, very famous, but it's one of the highest points telling what was that car for Autodelta, for Alfa Romeo. And we want to have today, together with the TZ, again this car. We're not here to make a conference on the 33, nor even on the GTA. We're here to make a conference on Autodelta. And Autodelta was, above all, the team.
Questo inizio con Alfa Romeo è stato dei più piacevoli e i progressi che si stanno facendo sono veramente fantastici, e devo dire c'è un'atmosfera in seno all'equipe dell'Alfa Romeo che non ho mai visto in nessuna squadra. È veramente una cosa fantastica.
So this team is a fundamental element of Autodelta, not only for the character, for the atmosphere. And I will ask you to tell me something about the atmosphere, but especially because the concept of team was in the contract. The fact that Autodelta was not a company, but a team able to do everything from the logistics to hiring the pilots, apart from the technical aspect. So the birth of Autodelta as a team was a deliberate action that was also stated in the contract, because it was the heart of this project. So now it is your time, it is your moment. You made us proposals. Everyone wants to give the microphone to his neighbor, but don't be shy. So who's gonna join me on stage first? Gallagher? We can stay here without going on stage. Welcome. I was told that no one has so many anecdotes, also spicy anecdotes, as you. I was the first to arrive there, and I got acquainted with the environment. We were 3 people, then little by little we grew. Luraghi wanted us to grow, and we became more important. I must say something, that Autodelta was not a team. It was a source of intelligence. We had historical characters, and in the 70s, 73, 74, 75, we did prototypes, rallies, races, mountain, downhill, motorsports, water sports. We were 150 people, and 120 people, 50 of whom were in the offices. 70 people did 5, 6 compensation every Sunday. So we were not a group, we were brothers and sisters. We shared hunger, sleep deprivation, and sacrifices. Thank you.
Grazie davvero.
Thanks again. You are many, and today you have the opportunity or the duty to tell us something. So who wants to tell how was living in Settimo, how was living around the different racetracks and how was working with Chiti. It was not how you lived, how you died. Hello everyone. I started working for Autodelta in '67, accompanied by my father. Because when I did the test, I was 16, I could not sign anything. So the day of when I was hired, again, my father had to sign the papers. And I finished working that apart from the Alfa Corte period in 2000. So the first thing I saw when I entered Autodelta, well, that I saw, the first thing that I saw, the first thing that I heard is when the master of the workshop that Calagar knows very well, Enzo Iotti, asked me to go to his office with the CEO of the time, whose name was Covini. You still remember him, right? And then he explained me more or less how was the wage, but again, I was 16 years old, you can imagine. And Mr. Iotti, I called him Mr. Iotti, told me in a dialect of Milan, "You, sir, come with me." So I was 16, there was no one talking to a teenager saying, "Sir." So I didn't understand that he was speaking with me. He told me a couple of times, "You, sir, come with me." And then I understood that I was that sir. And then the first nice thing I saw in the first hangar, well, there was Mr. Andolfi with a rope on the shoes because he couldn't pay laces, was Giovanni Scaglione with a 33 Stradale, who was doing this. So he could not see very well, so he was looking at the profile of the car. That's the first snapshot I have of Autodelta. Then we continued over time, but in the end, the first races, well, I did the first race when I was 17. So those people were 20 years older than me. But I never felt unease, even though I had fights with most of all, but it's difficult, to quantify everything. It's very hard, because rightly said, we were a family. Yes, some brothers, but some knives also. were not. There were not only brothers, but also brothers wanted to stab you, but most of the people were friends. And then the rest arrived, the Formula One, and he said something we must be proud of, that we raced, apart from bikes, we ran everywhere, from the mountain to the water to the racetracks. So I challenge you to find a house, an automobile house that did the same. So you want to start with questions? No, it's not questions. I just want to give you hints. So you said, okay, you were not a family, but you still meet among yourselves a couple of times a year after many, many years. Yes, but sometimes we lose a member. I'm no longer young, and there are people who are older than me, so unfortunately, but we try to do that now. We are more technological. With Facebook, you find someone, you talk. In those pictures, we see people that unfortunately are no longer with us. When you enter those hangars today, well, not even cows would go in a hangar like that. Do you remember the old Autodelta hangars? The cold in the winter and the heat in the summer. We remember it very well. There was a barrel where something was burnt, and sometimes everything went on fire. It happened also that there were big fires. But we continued anyway, and maybe it was the willingness to do, the willingness to emerge, to prove something. But in the end, there was the director who was motivating us, screaming like hell, but we have to say the truth, it was motivating in the end. So if I asked to talk with him, he accepted, and maybe he didn't approve what you said, but he met with you. But apart from Settimo, you did nice travels. Well, if for nice travels, you say what I did with the Formula 1 in America, well, when I went back, my son didn't recognize me. If you want to go instead of me, Lorenzo, no problem. So I came back home and he thought I was his uncle. Or maybe, I also have a redhead daughter. I don't know, where does she come from? You know what I mean? Thank you very much. And as we said, Autodelta ran with every vehicle, but that's a very long story to tell today. There was the Alfa Stu Trofeo, there were rallies, there were other commitments that starting from 1970 became more and more important with water sports. There was a Formula 1, prototypes, and all this was coupled to another aspect, the production. Autodelta was also a small constructor. There's a clause on the contract saying that products had to be stamped Alfa Romeo products prepared by Autodelta. But we know in reality that some cars were born there. The Alfetta GTB Turbo Delta, the Giulietta Turbo Delta, and especially the 33 Stradale, who today is the most iconic car of the cars which were born in Autodelta. And then it is true, many things were not done in Autodelta, were then outsourced to other suppliers, like the Carrozzeria Marazzi for the 33 Stradale, Weiner, who mounted the GTV Turbo Delta. But these projects were born there. So, also, in this case, the contribution of Autodelta to the image, the growth of Alfa Romeo was fundamental, without forgetting a series of other side works, like, for example, the preparation of cars for important customers. We know that some Turbo Delta kits were mounted on a 1750 Berlina for a famous Milanese editor, publisher, and in other cases the Autodelta also did works on commission for the managers of Alfa Romeo. So we talk about the team, but we couldn't avoid talking about the pilots, the many pilots that Autodelta had.
E l'artefice di questa lunga stagione felice. Ignazio Giunti, Andrea De Adamich, Nanni Cano, Mino Vaccarella, Teodoro Zecco, Mario Casoni, Spartaco.
Again, in this case, there's hundreds, thousands of images of faces. Some of them famous, others didn't have the time to become famous. Others were famous in different categories, with wearing different color uniforms in different years. It would be a huge feat today to talk about all of them, so we sum up some of them. But Bruno Giacomelli already spoke. I would call now here another milestone of Autodelta, Andrea De Adamich. Andrea You always quote it first every time we talk about GTA. But Andrea De Adamich, it also has the A. I'm sorry, but the right leg doesn't work very well. Since 1973 accident, the UK Grand Prix, not with the Alfa Romeo car, but apart from this, I saw important people. I would like to underline a couple of things. Arturo Chiti was a world genius of nuclear medicine. So that's why he could not come here with us today. But I saw many other mechanics from my times. And unfortunately, as Mr. Luraghi said before, many of them are no longer here with us today. But those people left, just like Carlo Chiti, important memories. Moments that cannot be repeated. That's the honesty, that the real thing. It was not like a family. Okay, in the family there's a kinship, but it was a team working together professionally. But doing that, and this was also merit of Carlo Chiti, in a way that when you talk about team, there's no team like the teams of Autodelta in those times. So that was wonderful. It was an important period of my life as well. Pilots who were there at the time, well, I remember them very well. Then there were Stombelin, Hezemans, Fallenham, who was formidable, underestimated considering his real capacity, because Fallenham at the Targa Florio was one going even more faster than Vaccarella, not being from Palermo or Sicily. Hezemans was very good, but Fallenham was formidable. So these were the foreign pilots. And then Zeccoli. Well, you have to consider that Zeccoli, and I want to tell this anecdote, was the recordman of Balocco. I saw the birth of Balocco. We went to eat at Buronzo, which was a bar. So at a certain point we went there to eat, and at the counter I see the friends of the pork. I mean, we had all the friends of the pork, the so-called friends of the pork. We had to pay a small tip and we could become friends of the pork. Then I was called to Buronzo after a few months, and they told me, come here, we will cook the pork. So with those money, with those tips, they bought a pig. And then when the pig was adult, they cooked it and they did a dinner with all the pieces of pork. It was not a heavy dinner, and it was a celebration in the small village. So on the menu we had a pork broth, and I said, oh, finally. But the broth was worse than the rest. It was super heavy. You had to then spend the night digesting it. But that was an anecdote. But talk about Zeccoli. It was very fast. He was a recordman in Balocco. But when he went on the other racetracks, it was not as fast as Nanni Galli, Giunti and me. He was slower than us. And he couldn't understand why, when he was at Balocco, he was faster 2 seconds per lap. So we thought, since at the end of the stretch of Balocco there was a possibility to cut a little bit more and you gain 2-3 seconds, we were convinced that there were no cameras, that he cut there the corner to gain a few seconds. So from the beginning of the stretch part, so that there was a small hut, there was not the vans, the hospitality, etc. So Nanni, Valli, Giunti and me went there to see whether he cut the race, but no. So in Balocco he was racing using the perfect gears for Balocco. So we used second gear and he used the third gear there, so it could gain a few seconds compared to us. So there's another anecdote of the history of Zeccoli. And for the rest, there were important characters, pilots of the time that are no longer here with us. You can have important champions, but as I said before, so I'm not talking about Schumacher, Prost, Stewart, etc. Anyone, Grammy, Jimmy Clark, anyone would recognize them on the streets. But I'm talking of people like Giunti, Nanni Galli, and myself. When we went to the city center of Milan, people recognized you. Today you have these champions of Formula One, which go super fast, but if you meet them in the streets, you don't even recognize them. I don't know what you think about this. So they are not as charismatic as the pilots of our period and Autodelta had. They were formidable, and then the 60s and 70s, the years that I lived, especially with Autodelta, were the best years of Italy, I think, but of the racing world that I experienced. So you race with almost everything that Autodelta produced, not with almost, with every car. Then, having lived the birth of Autodelta, I still remember that when it was born, but at the time I didn't have the money, I was a kid, the 33 Stradale was a beautiful car. And so I had a GTA Stradale, where the idea of the 33 was amazing, but it was expensive. It was like millions of euros today. And the first car was bought by a young lady of a Roman rich family, Raganelli, yes, who was go-kart world champion. I remember this because when she came there at Autodelta, everybody was jealous because no one could pay this. Yes, Raganelli, that is true. So I see. I have the original windbreaker of Autodelta from those times. So you see the yellow lines, which are dirt because it's still the oil of the 33 or GTA. It was never washed, but I kept in my memory all these histories. And today, well, it was a great day, not like the days we spent at the time, but almost. So congratulations to everyone who did something for Autodelta and you who participate in numerous numbers. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea.
Andrea De
Adamich, apart from his memories and witnesses, also talked about pilots, and he talked about Hezemans, who already collaborated to some of our backstages concerning the Targa Florio, who Andrea won. But since we were lucky enough to have him a few days ago here with us, we also wanted to shoot a video with him telling us what's Autodelta for him. Yes, in '69, I came where I was invited to test the Alfa GTA and the Alfa 33 in Balocco. Then I signed a contract with Autodelta for the European Championship. And every day from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. I tried the GTM, and in the end it was an incredible car. I won 8 races, the European Championship, and I also drove the 33. On first race I finished third at Sibling. Chiti, to me, is an incredible man. And I have an anecdote. So I go in his office. The office is full of documents, and there's 4 chairs. On 2 chairs there were 2 cats. On the other 2 dogs. So I entered the office. I wanted to move away a dog, and Chiti told me, "What are you doing? Don't you see that there's a dog sleeping?" So I said, "Oh, okay." So I stood up. He had an amazing character. And managing Autodelta at the time, there were more than 100 employees. It was not easy, but it was fantastic the way he did things. And at the time, Autodelta, for me, was the best organized car producer. Okay, I then went to Porsche, we had 25, 30 people, but Alfa, well, really did fantastic products.
Giacomelli finalmente ottiene un risultato tangibile conquistando la pole position. In soli 10 mesi l'Alfa Romeo è arrivata là dove altre case hanno dovuto attendere molto più tempo.
So, well, we should not talk about victories of Alfa Delta today because we don't have the time. There is a list there, but Alfa Delta leaves a heritage made up of marvelous objects which are one of the hearts of Alfa Romeo museums. It leaves a heritage of wins that are not there on that panel, but live in the history of Alfa Romeo. They live a technical heritage and a heritage of excellency, and also the passion. And talking about heritage, I would like to ask the last person who was seated at Chiti's desk, Pino D'Agostino, to come here and tell us the heritage of Autodelta. Hello everyone. First of all, let's start by saying that here we have two good engineers from Autodelta, and we have to tell this, Maurizio Colombo and Bizzarrini. Because I arrived in Autodelta after Alfa Corse in the last months of Autodelta. It was November '84. And Autodelta, which was a company, was about to be closed, and the new program had to restart with Gianni Tonti, and the new program was developed by Alfa Corse as a team of Alfa Romeo. So the company was living the last months of Carlo Chiti, and then when Carlo, while continuing his activity, created the Motori Moderni, at the end of the life of Motori Moderni, we, who were in the DTM German Championship, we were involved there. We needed more engines for the teams who raced with us, such as Alfa Romeo. Well, engineer Chiti gave me the opportunity to create in Motori Moderni a space where Cristoforetto, who retired, but together with our other motor experts who were retired, checked the engines that were used by us. So we lived the closure of Alfa Corse with Carlo Chiti. And another anecdote I want to share with you. It is something that I keep in my heart, and no one, neither my collaborators nor my colleagues, never knew. The last engines we produced before I went to Ferrari, it was the 10 cylinders 3500 and V6 2500, which participated in the DTM. Well, in the two motors, a 1035 RC, 625 RC. This is the mark in the drawings, 10 cylinders, RC Rebecchi Chiti. V6 2500 RC, it's Rebecchi Chiti. So in the drawings of Alfa Corse, there are the two engines which were named, and this was my personal commitment, because to me, they were the reference points of what I learned. Thank you also for this, who no one knew. So we already talked about the 10 cylinders. We will see you again when we talk about the DTM and many other topics. So thank you for participating today as well. Thank you. So we have touched different topics. I know we would need more time. But apart from this, the backstage continues to live, and as for every backstage, we also collaborate with our clubs. The clubs are the soul of Alfa Romeo. They participate to these events and make these events alive, make the museum at Alfa Romeo alive. In this case, I should thank Alfa Club Milano, which helped us to organize this event. It organized a part before the backstage with a visit of the old hangars of Autodelta in Settimo, so I would ask to Andrea Vecchi to join me on stage. Thank you, Lorenzo. Well, apart from the fact that being an enthusiast, having passion for Alfa, I'm still touched by the things we heard today. So after seeing all these big names that when we were kids were our heroes, so to me, as for anyone talking about Autodelta, is a reason of pride. It's undescribable. How many of you, this is a real question, how many of you, by looking at a free road and having the steering wheel with the Alfa Romeo logo in the center, has never thought or dreamt of driving like one of these great pilots? Arturo Merzario, Carlo Faccetti, the great De Adamich, who is here with us today, Nanni Galli, Teodoro Zeccoli, the great Ignazio Giunti, or Bruno Giacomelli. Personally, almost every time. But of course, I can't. So, before continuing, I want to tell you something about a letter that I received 10 years ago from Gianni Chizzola. This man is Gianni Chizzola, who was also the link between Alfa Romeo and Autodelta. So 10 years ago, we celebrated the 50th of Autodelta, and he sent us a letter on the Autodelta stamp paper. I want to read you. So I'm writing you this note on the original Autodelta paper from the time to thank you for your invitation. To the meeting I cannot participate to due to my health conditions. I really regret it because I would have liked to dive in the past, which is so dear to me. I cannot be there with you to celebrate this half a century, but 50 years I left a mark on my body, so I'm happy to share with you my thoughts of that epoch when the automobile was still young and romantic. It's incredible to think that the first automobiles were just born in the beginning of last century, and in the 60s we were at the half of their life, even though we thought we were arriving at the goal with the birth of the TZ. And I wish a glorious future for the car that still have a long road to race, and I wait you at Feletto. This was a letter of Gianni Chizzola. So talking about Autodelta, I said before, it's a reason for pride, but it's also a responsibility, because we are talking about a company which won on every racetrack. It's a company which brought the Alfa Romeo brand, the name of Alfa Romeo, all around the world. So it's also a responsibility. Before Lorenzo talked about the birth date of Autodelta, and I have an anecdote also on this, but before telling you this anecdote, I want to read you exactly what's written on the Constitution Act of Autodelta. So first of all, this document, founding document, was done in Udine at Giacomo Zaina Notary. I want to read it because it's interesting. So the notary is present today, 4th of March 1963, in Udine. Then it says the number 12587, etc., etc. So the object is founding of a company called Autodelta, based in Cavagnacco, etc. So the company will build, assemble cars. The capital is 500,000 liras, and the members are Carlo Chiti and Ludovico Chizzola. The administration and management is individual, so just one signature was needed, while for the operations of extraordinary administration, they had to sign the documents jointly, so 2 signatures were needed, and I wanted to underline this and read this. Why? Well, because either the 4th or the 5th, okay, both are okay. If you want to consider the 4 as a date when the document was signed, if you want to consider the 5th, well, that's the date when the document was deposited at the tribunal of Udine. I can say that Alfa Romeo decided that the day was March the 5th. We are here today, so this plate is no longer there. So I chose a picture of Mr. Gianluigi Picchi here, represented as a pilot. So apart from being official Autodelta pilot, he was also official pilot of the Portello, which is Andrea Caiani is here representing this part of Alfa Romeo, promoting the sports, the circus sports activity of the brand all over the world. Why? So there's this plate. This is not this plate, I mean, in 2002, about 20 years ago, the director, engineer Pasquale Riveri, at the time vice president of Alfa Romeo, asked me to go and measure this wall, Via Ricofermi 7, to measure it. So what did he do? He had from his collaborators to measure exactly the Autodelta plate, which is 29 by 59. So it was reproduced because exactly March 5th, 2003, Alfa Romeo presented a new racing team which was called Autodelta in Geneva, March 5th. So this one was one of my anecdotes. So why the plate of Autodelta is important here in Balocco? Because the Autodelta hangar workshop was recreated in Balocco, so this plate was put there. Before we talked about an extraordinary era, 2 world titles and an incredible list of victories and wins, TZ, GTA, the 33. So Autodelta, Dario Luraghi said that was strongly wanted by Giuseppe Luraghi. His farsightedness was not because in Alfa Romeo there were no valid technicians, but technical planning was driven by Orazio Satapulica, and you know that this museum itself here is dedicated to Orazio Satapulica as an inspiring muse for future models. So anyone should know, especially those who work in Alfa Romeo, what was Alfa Romeo at the time. But not only Orazio Satapulica, the director of mechanical planning was Mr. Giuseppe Busso, and I find many similarities between Giuseppe Busso and Carlo Chiti. They were both people having a strong character, but also a difficult character. They both had a past in Ferrari. They both were designers of engines for racing cars, and they were both looking for technological excellence. So Luraghi had the farsightedness to separate these two activities so that Alfa Romeo planning could be dedicated with the engines that we know, with the serial production and Autodelta, to bring the Alfa Romeo products to win. So this decision of Luraghi allowed that healthy competition to reach the technological excellence. So Carlo Chiti was not only a person with a difficult character, he was also motivating people not only to take part, not only to do their best, but he said, and these are the anecdotes that I like, as he will say in the video that I want to show you, Nanni Galli, that he didn't care whether you broke a car, he didn't care what you did. You had to win. That's the important thing. And you say, well, yes, okay, but I also like anecdotes. Like often, Andrea De Adamich, for example, people said about him that you never saw him arriving. So maybe he was humble enough because he said, I had the headlamps off. Yeah, he kept the headlamps off because he wanted to save few watts for the candles, because at the time there were dynamos, so we thought it could guarantee more speed. But these are the anecdotes that we like. So talking about Carlo Chiti and his attitude towards pilots, well, he brought them to a point of risking in order to win. So it was dangerous. But he said, I'm a quiet technician who ended up in the competition world, the irrational, contradictory world of competitions. So we believe that he probably could have never lived outside this world, because it was his world. So I wanted to thank you. Specifically, I wanted to thank Arnaldo Tonti, who could not be here but worked for Autodelta, Giuseppe Callager, who helped us a lot, and I would like to thank the staff of the museum, Lorenzo Ardizio, Raffaella Quacquaro, Alessandro Nardizzi from Alfa Romeo Communication. I would like to thank all of you and tell you that when I hold that steering wheel, I feel a great man, and I will never give up to this. Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Alfa Club Milano, who helped us with this backstage. Of course, there will be many other events linked to the Autodelta, and also the Portello will race in Monza, April the 16th. But now it is time to celebrate, to give the awards, and now I ask my colleagues to help me bring here the panel, which is the son of Mr. Oliveri, who headed the museum for a long time. It has two faces. One side is the institutional one with the wings, and the other one is the one part that most interests us, which is the back, and we will see in a minute. So we will complete it. 20 years ago, you participated to another celebration, a lunch here at the museum, and you signed this panel. And what I ask you now is again to come here to take this award, so make another signature which represent the story of the celebration of Autodelta. So Andrea De Adamich, Pino D'Agostino, Dario Luraghi, and all the Autodelta team who is here today, please come here, sign this panel for the 60th anniversary, and let's take a picture together. So with this group picture, we conclude this celebration, which, well, lasted more than the usual hour of our backstages. I thank all the guests who participated, and I thank the audience. Have a great day.